The following is a fan-based discussion, and all materials being discussed are owned by Toei and Subaraya Productions. I claim no ownership to the materials being discussed and is purely fan opinion.
Hi everybody, welcome to another TFX tier list video. Last time I made a tier list on all the primary riders, or at least the Heisei and Reiwa ones, because I haven't seen any of the Showa riders. However, with this tier list, I won't be having that problem, because today I will be ranking all of the secondary riders, and I have seen every show that has a secondary rider in it. So without further ado, let's get into this. Starting with Hikawa Makoto, Kamen Rider G3. He's a good character. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Agito, unlike some people, but Hikawa is great. He gets his ass kicked quite often, at least initially, until he gets G3X, since the G3 system wasn't designed to fight the unknowns. But he still fights to protect people, as a police officer should. His interactions with Shoichi are very, very funny since Hikawa is clumsy. He did also have moments where he's just embarrassing himself, but for the first secondary rider, overall he's great, so I'll put him in A tier. Next is Akiyama Ren, Kamen Rider Knight.
Henshin!
He's one of the best secondaries ever. You see him before Shinji. And unlike Shinji, he was a much more experienced fighter because he had been fighting for some time prior to Shinji joining the Rider War. He wanted to win the war in order to save his fiancée. And even though he does become friends with Shinji over time, he never really deviates from this goal, which is great. He comes off as very cold and stoic most of the time, but I like how he's not a heartless person because he doesn't like killing, like when he hesitated to kill Guy. He's the first secondary rider I ever saw when I got into Kamen Rider, and he's also the first S tier secondary rider. Great character. Next is Kusaka Masato, Kamen Rider Kaiksa.
Henshin!
One of the most despicable people in Kamen Rider or really Togu history. Once this dude came in, Fies just was not a fun show to watch anymore, for the most part, at least to me. Whenever this scumbag was around, I was like, can somebody just punch or kill him, please? He does die in the end, which was great, because he deserved it for everything that he has done. Now, I know he's someone you're supposed to hate, and the actor does a great job of portraying this kind of character. But man, was he an atrocious person. So he's going in absolute trash, because he is trash. Alright, next, Tachibana Sakuya, Kamen Rider Garen. He's fine. He'll always be memorable because of memes, just like the show. Although Blade, even without the memes, is still a good show, don't get me wrong. At first, he had trouble fighting due to psychological reasons. That part was handled okay-ish, but then again, Blade doesn't have the strongest start, or really a great start. I like how he became Mutsuki's mentor, and his ideals did clash with Kenzaki's. There were some things I didn't like, such as how he didn't earn his power-up, because he got the Queen of Hearts card from Hajime, which was one of the cards needed for him to access his Jack form. Overall, he's good enough, I guess, so I'll give him B tier. Next, Ibuki, Kamen Rider Ibuki. Also a fine character. I liked his interactions with Akira where he is her mentor until that stopped being a thing. He also had interactions with Kasumi, which sorta went the romantic route, but I feel like the show didn't really focus on him as much as Hibiki, who is the main rider, and Todoroki, the tertiary rider. This problem only got worse in the second half, but then again, a lot of things got worse in the second half of this show. He's not bad, I'll put him in B tier. Next, Kagami Arata, Kamen Rider Attack.
Henshin!
One of the best secondaries ever. You see him going from a regular Zect agent to becoming a Kamen Rider. At first, he wanted to be Kabuto, which of course did not happen because that was Tendo. He then became the Bee for a little bit, and then he became Gatak. Seeing him develop throughout this show was amazing, and he's the main character of Kabuto, despite not being the main rider. He's also a great foil to Tendo, who is overpowered in essentially every aspect. So, without a doubt, he's S tier, amazing secondary. Next up, Sakurai Yuto, Kamen Rider Zero Nose.
変身
Also, an amazing character. He had a very tragic story where every time he transformed, people would lose their memories of his older self, aka Past Man, until later on, where every time he transformed, people would forget him. But despite that, he still continued to fight, which was great. His relationship with Ryotaro didn't start off the best, but they eventually became full on allies, and his relationship with Deneb was both wholesome and in some cases comedic. Just like the show, really. Of course, there's also the meme of people not knowing who he is, given how the show works, but overall, he's great, so he's also S tier. Next is Nago Keisuke, Comrade Ixa, or at least the main user of Ixa.
変身
I don't really like him that much, and that's not just because I don't like Kiva. He starts off being very arrogant, and then he becomes comic relief, which I didn't really like it. I like how at first he doesn't trust Kiva and views him as an enemy, but after he finds out that Wataru is Kiva, he lets go of this thought, and they become allies. He does act as a mentor to Wataru, at least for a portion of the show. Like, he's not the worst, but still not really a good character, so I'll put him in D tier. Alright, Kaito Daiki, Kamen Rider The End.
変身
He's alright. Like, he's not a hero because his main occupation is a thief, but he still helps Decade in some cases. He does come off as sort of an ass in some cases until Superhero Tyson, where he was a little bitch in that movie. His backstory was not explored that well, like the whole thing with his brother was not handled well, mainly due to not enough screen time, because Decade is like half as long compared to most Toku shows. Unless you're Ultraman nowadays. He's alright, I'll give him C tier. Alright, now we enter the Neo Heisei era, starting with Teru Ryu, Kamen Rider Axel.
変身
A very good character with a very good backstory, where his family was murdered by the Weather Dopant, and he wants to find him to avenge his family. I like how he's initially at odds with the main riders, Shotaro and Philip, who together are Commander W, but they eventually become allies and friends. After he defeats the Weather Dopant, he finds out that Shroud was also responsible for his family's death, but he ultimately lets go of his hatred, which I quite like. His relationship with Akiko, I guess, was fine in show. He's great, so he's S tier. Do not question me on this. Now, Kamen Rider Birth has two users in show, so let's start with the first one, Date Akira.
変身
Also a very good character with a very cool personality. He has charisma and brings charm to this show, along with being a great mentor to Goto. He has a very interesting story where we find out that he has a bullet in his head. As such, he's fighting to earn money, which he needs to pay for the surgery required to remove the bullet. He does leave for a bit and then come back as Proto Birth, but he's a great character, so he's S tier. Now, there's no second picture here, but I'll still talk about him. The second user of birth, Goto Shintaro. He sort of gives the same vibes as Kagami from Kabuto, where he initially starts off as a regular guy, more or less, working for Kogami before Date trains him to become Birth after Date leaves. I really like their relationship as both mentor student and partners. I thought that was very well handled. At first, he didn't like Eiji, but over time, he warmed up to him and they worked together. He did get a little bit boring at times, so I'll give him A tier. Next is Sakata Ryusei, Kamen Rider Meteor.
変身
I like him. He had his own goal in the beginning where he wanted to find the Aries Zodiac to save his friend, but he had to hide his identity, so he acted completely differently out of suit, which makes sense. Of course, that stops being a thing after the Kamen Rider Club finds out that he is Meteor and they become friends. His fighting style was very enjoyable to watch, and he has one of the most badass moments where he kills Gentaro with the 1-inch punch. His arc with him hiding his identity went a little bit too long, but it was still nicely handled, so he's A tier. On the downside though, Nito Kosuke, Kamen Rider Beast. One of the worst secondary riders ever. I remember watching Wizard and hoped that when he showed up, the show would get better, because I was bored. But no, the show didn't get better. He was irritating a lot of the time, with him constantly interrupting other people. He had an interesting premise where he must feed Chimera with magic in order to stay alive. But I feel it wasn't brought up enough. And it also felt it had little relevance for most of the show. He's not good, so he's absolute trash. However, Kumon Kaito, Kamen Rider Baron.
変身 Banana
One of the best secondary riders ever. He had his own story and motivations, which he stuck to throughout the entire show. He cares about Kota, though he never becomes friends with him. I also like the contrast between his and Kota's motivations, because they more or less have the same end goal. They just have very different opinions in regards to how to achieve it. Like Kaito wants to obtain the power to destroy the world and then recreate it where the weak will not be trampled by the strong. He's amazing, so he's S tier. Next, Shijima Go, Kamen Rider Maha.
変身
He's also a good character, where he starts off as a great foil to Shinosuke, where Shinosuke is a lot more serious and Go is a lot more hyperactive, because Go's younger. He views Shinosuke as an older brother figure as such, which I loved. He hated all Roid mutes in the beginning, which puts him at odds with Chase, even after he joins them. His whole thing with his dad was great, and he gave us one of the best lines in Kamen Rider when he killed him. It said to go for it, didn't it? I do have a nitpick where he should have gotten at least one more form, but it's fine. He's A tier. Next is Fukami Makoto, Kamen Rider Spectre.
変身
He's okay. Like, he had an interesting premise where he started off as being antagonistic to Ghost, because he's trying to gather the icons to restore his younger sister. After he becomes friends with Takaru again, he was boring to me. The friendship aspect wasn't explored enough, and the whole thing with his doppelganger, I don't even think was explained in show. He's alright, not bad, but not good, so he's C tier. Next, Kagami Hero, Kamen Rider Brave.
変身
I'm a Kamen Rider.
He's an amazing secondary rider. he experienced something tragic where his girlfriend died due to the Bugster virus, and said Bugster that formed as a result was graphite, which also ties his story to Taiga, who's Kamen Rider Snipe. I liked his dynamic with Emu, where at first they clashed due to different ideologies as to how to be a doctor, but he does warm up to Emu, who of course starts out as an intern. His arc where he works with Dan Masamune in order to revive his girlfriend and him rejoining the heroes was very well done. He's easily S tier. Next, Banjo Ryuga, Kamen Rider Cross.
変身
He's a pretty good character. I liked his dynamic with Sento, where Sento was the brain while he's the brawn. He had a lot of funny moments with Sento, and the arc he goes through, where he becomes a hero despite being a part of Evolto, was pretty good. However, he had the whole thing with his girlfriend, which only lasted about one episode. Basically Brave's arc, but condensed. I also didn't like the finale where we think that he sacrificed himself, but it turns out that he was alive. And I'm like, why? That nerfed the emotional impact that that moment should have had. So I'll put him in A tier. Now the final Heisei secondary, Mule-Queen Gaze, Kamen Rider Gaze.
変身
He's alright at best. Like in the beginning, his motivation flips so much between wanting to kill Sogo and not trying to kill him. Very inconsistent. Him living with Sogo while intending to kill him just didn't really make sense. He does become friends with Sogo, which would have been good if his motivations did not flip as much as it did. Also, most of his suits are hideous to look at. He's not a terrible character per se, but definitely not a good character, so he's C tier, at best. Now, finally, we enter the Reiwa era. First, we have Fua Isamu, Kamen Rider Vulcan. I quite like him. He starts off hating the Humagears and wants to destroy them all, which puts him at odds with Arto, but over time, especially when he was saved by a Humagear, his hatred starts to wear off. I do wish they did more with him when it came to his family, but it is what it is. Still, I quite like him, so he's A tier. Next is Shindo Rintaro, Kamen Rider Blades.
変身
One of my least favorite secondaries, the fact that he's from a show called Saber didn't help in the slightest. He's boring. He has the whole thing with the Sword of Logos, except one, that part took forever to resolve, and two, him going from Toma's friend to being his enemy was paced terribly. He also had a lot of interactions with Mei, but Mei was irritating as fuck, so I wasn't a fan of that. I'll put him in D tier. He's not the absolute worst, but not good either. Next is Igarashi Daiji, Kamen Rider Live.
変身
He probably is the worst secondary rider ever, or at least one of the absolute worst. He had something interesting going for him with Kagero, and how Kagero was basically a manifestation of his resentment towards his older brother. He's fine for a good bit, and then he kills Kagero, which is also fine. However, then he decides to join GIF after he thinks his brother killed that woman, and I'm like, bitch, are you for real? He also tries to make everyone obey GIF, and his actions also cause people to get hurt. For someone who's supposed to be fighting for justice, you sure as hell are doing the opposite of that. He does reconcile with Kagero, but that takes so long, and his redemption did not feel earned in the slightest. I would not have minded someone killing him. He's one of the absolute worst secondaries ever. He's absolute trash. Now, there isn't a picture of him here, but I'll still talk about him, because Revice has two secondaries, just like how he has two primaries. Kagero, Kamen Rider Evuru.
変身
He's better than Daiji in basically every way, like his personality and his suit. However, the main problem with him is his lack of screen time. After his death, he doesn't come back until almost 20 episodes later, which doesn't do his character any favors. But I still like him enough to put him in B tier if we had a picture of him here. Next, Sakurai Keiwa, Kamen Rider Tycoon. He's one of my favorite secondary writers, starting off as a kind man who just wants to do good and wishes for world peace, even though he didn't really have any idea on how to achieve that. He gets reality checked quite a bit, like with the fact that players can die during the DGP, and how everyone has their own wish that they want granted, even at the cost of their lives. When her sister dies, he turns to the dark side, which I think was handled quite well, and it makes sense because you see how close he is with his sister. He's a very interesting and just great character, so he's S tier. Next, we have Kudo Rine, Kamen Rider Majeido. The first female secondary writer, and also a very disappointing character. I hate Gotchard as a whole, but she's not a good character. I don't dislike her as much as Hotaro, but man did they shaft her. She had the storylines with both her father and Atropos, which were both very underdeveloped. Not to mention, she gets his final form near the finale when Atropos sacrifices herself. I'm like, why would you do it like this? Like, it also happened with Maha, but Maha had a much better story. I do like some of her interactions with Hotaro, which seem to be going the romantic route, especially if you watch the Gotchard Graduations movie, but it didn't go anywhere in show. She is not like the absolute worst secondary writer, but still not good. I'll put her in D tier. However, next we have Karakida Hanto, Kamen Rider Valen. He's my favorite secondary writer of all time. He's the GOAT when it comes to secondary writers. The arc he goes through is amazing. He starts off as a man who hates and wants to kill Granules, but over time that hatred starts to go away. His interactions with Shoma, him finding out that Shomo is a Granute and then reconciling with him, was handled very well. It was amazing. Without a doubt, he goes in S tier. Last but not least, Nox. Kamen Rider Nox. Zets isn't over yet, but I am fully caught up on it. So far, I quite like him. He has a very interesting backstory with him being a former Code agent who was abandoned while on a mission and now he's fighting against Code. Now he's a bit different to the other secondaries because his character sort of got reset due to the first half of the show being a dream. And so far, he hasn't really done much after that, but he's still good. Like, Tycoon went through something similar as well, but with the way that show works, he always regained his memories. That doesn't happen here. So far, I'll put him in A tier. Good, but not one of the best. There you have it. This is my tier list of every secondary writer. Do you agree with my opinion? If you disagree, what would you change about this tier list? Feel free to talk about it in the comment section below. That's it for today, folks. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It will be greatly appreciated. Feel free to follow me on all my socials, and I'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.